whether you have growth or whether data is on your phone, and everyone can access to the data. Everyone doing the analysis, homework, and if you have problem, find me every day, right? And don't talk to me on the management meeting. I think it is a very big change, in 2010 when I started to backing each of my VP to say, please use data. It's so different. It's so different in 6 years. It's not a long time, right? It's not a long time. 6 years, for a large company is not a long time actually. So there's one point I want to mention to you guys. Another one is that this team talk about feedback loop, right? And I think Alibaba is the company who really in depth in feedback loop. I don't know whether you guys have get the background why you're talking about feedback loop, right? Because in our company, I mentioned in my department, for example, I talk about usually when a new guy's coming in, I ask them to read 3 books. One is called there's a book called Why We Buy. If you search in Amazon, right, this is a very old book, Why We Buy. And the reason why I asked my analysts to look into Why We Buy is that it's been a very long time book about how do you see people, how to see the behavior of the people before they buy something. But at that time, they don't have big data. This guy, the author of the book, actually go around in the super market, look into how people, take up some of the inventory, grocery, and then, taking looks in the paper in order to design what is happening in the supermarket. It's a very great book. But another book I want to talk about, when you talk about feedback loop, there's a book called Thinking in System, right? Thinking in System and Premier. The book is actually talk about what do we mean by a positive reinforcement loop and a negative reinforcement loop. Because when we're thinking in a system, there's 2 things we have to remember. One is there is a positive reinforcement. The more data that I have, the more value that I can provide them. It's a positive. The money that more that I have, I can invest more. And then I get the result coming, the ROI from the investment. I can get more money and then I invest more. It's positive reinforcement loop. But there is also a negative reinforcement loop, like most of the company, like the more the more that I sell, right, then I may be coming into a difficulty to serve the customer better. It's a negative reinforcement loop, and that's why in a Double 11 event, usually I look into the number is that the number of days for the people who buy on Double 11 before they receive the product. So the day they receive the product, sometimes it takes 14 days, right? 2 weeks before they get the product. So the more that you sell on that day, actually it is satisfied coming from the customer as well. It's a negative reinforcement loop. The first thing you want to in mind when we talk about feedback is the latent effect. Latent effect always fools us in terms of data even, right? Looking at the data, you think, it's great, but it's not great after half an hour, half years later. It's not great for half years later when you see the result. I can give you an example, right? When we're doing an SEM promotion, usually people like to put a search engine keyword buy, right? You guys, a lot of people are on e-commerce. You do like to use in Google search keyword. You would like to put a word in your title, say cheap cell phone or cheap T-shirt. The more that you're doing this, of course, on a daily basis, you get a very good click-through. But then, as a lifetime value for the customer that you have created, that you are getting, they're not that good customer that providing you a better result in the future. So that actually, you have a number to measure after 3 months later. You see that the percentage that the customer not coming back to your website is like 80%, because they're just coming to here to get a cheap cell phone, but they're not a value customer. You see what I mean? So it's a negative reinforcement loop, there is a positive reinforcement, and there's also a latent effect. And also another element for thinking in system is called balance. there is always a resources balance in the company. That's what, the reason why I talk about this, because my thinking is that while in a company that have a good KPI, right, usually it's so hard for us to measure the KPI in what should I say, in a very good loop, because in between that there's a lot of broken part of it. So you can't get the whole picture. You will have a lot of the broken part inside the system, and also the broken part for the data. So this is something I want to share before my presentation. If you want to make a guess on how much of this 10 diamond looks worth in China, this is a 1965 $10 looks. Can someone tell me how much is it?
100,000.
Few thousand?
100,000.
100,000? Anyone want to give another guess? I see that there's not many people going to the phone and try to find out, right? And that's why what happened in most of our business day, when we talk about, well, we want to make a decision, and someone will say, well, I will give a wild guess. But you will not right away thinking, what is the best data source that I can find out how much is this note? Actually, this note's worth around 170, around 170 to 230 RMB if you go into Taobao, right? So Taobao is actually the best source for you to understand how much is this note worth. But a lot of people, when we think about, we love decision making, we love, a better way to decision making when coming to a daily basis, right? Most of the management will say, okay, let me think, okay, $1,000, without thinking that there is a data source for you to understand how much is it. Of course, there's another thing. When I ask this question, a lot of people say, how about go to Google, right? Because on your web is Google, or you go to eBay, or you go to Amazon, right? So the source for Google is not as good as eBay. Why? Because one is about information, one is about transaction, right? So there is a difference in between the source, and the data source actually helping you to making a better decision on this $10 notes. But also, if you agree with that, I want to go in one more step deeper on what is the driving force for what changed the value of this $10 notes the most?
Scarcity?
The number, the series number. If the number in here is actually DXM 88888, I think the answer coming from the guy on the back, right, will be less, because that would be a very expensive note in 1965. So when you look at this, it will say no one single instance in the data that you have in Taobao is equivalent to these notes, right? There's no similar. So you need to find the proxy. You need to find the proxy in order to understand how much is it. For example, if there is a note called 111111, but it's worth around 1,000 or $3,000. Okay, you see what I mean? One is that I want you to see is that one is that you need to look into the data. The second is that you don't have this data that accurate. Maybe you can find the proxy. So you find the proxy. And then I will ask, what is the most important attribute in order to design how much is this note worth? Then you're coming into a machine learning part. A machine learning part or AI part about it, because you don't have perfect information about this. If you don't have perfect information, then you're using a digital technology in order to resolve this problem, right? This is the most important thing about why you have to use machine learning to do this. If it's a perfect information, you don't need that difficult machine learning algorithm, right? Because you have the answer already. It's just that when the data is not enough, or the attribute that affecting the value of this paper notes is like thousands of them. It's actually when you're looking into a consumer world, right? in each of the customer in China, on average, we have a few thousand attributes on one customer, right? In order to find out who like to use which cosmetic product, it's much easier for Taobao to find out because they have many more attributes for one person. I'll talk about this in the later. But when we fly from China, for example, like Beijing to London, how much data actually we connected with a flight in there in order to have a safe flight for 8 hours? Can you guess? It's more than a gigabyte for the new AHM system, Airplane Health Management System. But then the reason why I want to put in this is you have more data when there is a more uncertainty during the cross from the A point to B point. Guess, isn't it harder for a company, right, if you want to make your company from A rank to C rank? And the data that you lead may be more difficult than this, right? The reason why of this is because the goal of your company or the KPI of company is not that defined. It's not that defined as I want to fly from A point to B point. Where a company is in an A round or B round, usually they don't even have defined their business model sometimes. And the reason why for investors, usually we look into a company on A round to see what do you think, what is your business model in the future, right? And then I give you the money to tell me in 18 months later, to tell me that, yeah, I have the business model now. And then I will invest more money to you on the B round, right? On a B round to C round, usually I ask that, okay, you got the business model, but I want to know how can you accelerate against your competitor. Okay, and I can give you a C round money on that. Each, on average, 18 months, in order to prove the value of your company in 3 rounds. Of course, that would be different if your company is much like of the business where you have to invest a lot more money, right, before it's becoming a very good company. Okay, then how about we come into a smart city, right? If I'm a mayor of a city and I want to measure how many people are living in this bracket and how people, when they're living in there, are they happy? What is the average time for them to travel from home to this area? If I can decrease the time, I can reduce the time from home to here, will the company more willing to invest in this area, right? That's actually some of the city decision maker really want to make, and how much data then they have to connect in order to solve this problem. In Beijing, it's usually like on average 45 minutes for people who live in at home and coming into the office area. So the more data that you have, the better that you can make the decision. But provided that you have very good data architect, right? Because you cannot have all this data coming in as a rapid speed and then put it all in the bus rapid speed, and you think that one day it becoming the treasure of your company. And I think that is the work that I did during the last 6 years in Ali. So my work is actually that, no, when you have the data, I want the data to be connected in a proper way. When the data is stored in a proper way, and the data is standardized in a proper way, in order for the people when they want to use it, it's much easier to using this kind of data. I remember that on the day when I went to Ali, right, each day we have 250 gigabyte as an extra data coming in. So the volume for the Ali at that time is 350 gigabyte, which is huge at that time. And then Jack beginning to tell us that if you guys not thinking of a way to using the data, our company will be broke, because it is a huge cost to maintain such a big data in the company. If you cannot find a way to earn money with it, I mean, you will eat up all the revenue in the company. And that time we spent many of our time to organize the data better. So my suggestions is that when you guys going into a data, becoming a digital company or a data company, bear in mind that it's not the data volume. It's much more on how can you mix of the data. So I have a formula there when I advise the company there. I say, the data that you have as a base, I would want to ask how much percent of your data is actually using in your engine. For example, in Ali, right, the most important 4 engines in Alibaba, one is the searching engine, the other is the recommendation, and then the other one is the advertisement system, and the 4th is the business intelligence system. 4 of them. So if I can look into the 4th system on the top, and I can measure how much data are you using with all the data we are connect, right? And the percentage of it is actually my KPI for my colleague. So I want to have this number higher, because otherwise we will spend too much of our money storing rubbish in our rubbish bin. So it's not measured like a physical product. Usually when people like to say, how about we do is stock taking on our data, right? Stock taking in data is actually not working in the data world, because data can be like A plus B is equal to Z, right? So I can expand my inventory easily. I have this data and I have this data. How about I cross all this data together? I have a very big data in our company, right? But it's useless. So the way that I measure or stock take the data in Alibaba is the effective data that we have against the raw data volume. It's the percentage that I want to know, like the percentage of the useful data in the company is much more important. So where is all this data, right? So when you're looking into here, it's better that you have a very well-defined problem before you start taking this data, because every data is in a framework. Because, for example, like I want to have more data in order to recommend a better product to you, right? That is a framework. Then if I want to provide more data to you, so a recommendation engine, I need to know your buying history. I also want to know your browsing behavior today. Because there's always, when we're doing what we call a short decision, recommendation engine or searching engine is actually a short decision. Not like you want to be a better life, you want to have a better life, right? If you want to have a better life, that is a long decision. But if you want to buy something in the shopping center, right? It's a short decision there. So once you're coming in, actually I try to guess, what do you want today, right? So the more that you browse on the website today, the more that I know that your behavior today. But at the same time, I also has your historical data. So how can I combine all these two together in order to guess what do you want today? Will be a very important work then. So then I have to define what kind of data I really want to get in order to give a guess. I'll give you an example. Right? On 2013, when we started to using a big data, there's one department who is selling Mark 6. What's the what's the in China we call this a lottery, selling lottery, right? So selling lottery is more like, if I like to buy lottery, it's whether that I'm going to this area buying lottery or that area, that place buying lottery. There's no difference between the lottery when I buy from Ali or buy from other area. So that guy was asking me that we have a huge population, but why? What happened that when I try to promote people to buy lottery in Ali and Taobao, and the conversion rate is not that good. So we're beginning to try a new method, which is that we buy a website in China called CNCC, which is to connect a lot of the small sites in China in a different content, right? With different content. So my analogy at that time would say that, okay, how about we connecting all this data that people has reading something related to the lottery in the last 2 weeks, and then have this data cross the data that I have in Ali, right? In order to know that people who ever have read lottery content in the last 2 weeks, but not buying a lottery for Taobao in the last month, then I'm going to promote it. Okay? So we have very good result after that. I just want to give the reason. The data that you have is not enough to understand this person. But then if I can get something out of the transaction data, then I can better understand that might be that you wanted to buy a lottery. And usually we call this is a leaks analysis, not a very long decision, a short decision that I can get you and say, how about buy lottery in Taobao? You see what I mean? So the data source is very important, the data source. And that's why beginning with this topic, right, I tell you that I was saying that, how can you guess the value for the $10 better? Because data source actually decided the accuracy already. And in here is also the data source. If you choose the writing, it's actually providing a very extra value for a decision, for a recommendation in this way. Up to now, is anyone have anything want to discuss? If no, I'll continue. Right? Yeah.
You just mentioned about the external data sources, and do you have any idea on how to start to looking for external data sources?
I just wondering on how you find some external data sources. Like you mentioned the case of lottery, how you can start thinking about acquiring another website which is provide the contents about lottery. If I want to start, if I want to beginning with some question, and right now I have only my transaction in my own website. So how can you thinking about more data sources, like a relevant data?
In China, right, when people want to know more about a customer, usually even for the company, I mean, for Ali, we have no problem. Because in Ali, we have huge data set for me to digest. I don't really need to go outside, but for the small or media e-commerce site that are not as big as Ali, right? They have to think about whether they can have this data from the operator, right? From the operator as well. Sometimes also from the content provider, because content provider know what this customer want or what this customer go into. For example, if I want to, if you want to recommend something for me to having my summer trip, then you really need to understand what kind of content I'm looking into, whether I want to go to Hawaii or whether I want to Japan, right? So you need to have this kind of data in order to guess what is my direction on there. So it really depends on, one is that the cost of the data. The other is the accessibility of the data. And also it depends on whether the data is on a one-to-one basis. Because when it's on a one-to-one basis, it's much dangerous because you are touching on something much on a privacy issue. But if you are touching on something on a segmentation level, it's much easier. So for the country that has a much more restricted regulation on getting data outside of your company, you really need to look into segmentation. What we call this called a micro segmentation. Because when we talk about segmentation in the old world, right, it usually means you have 100 segments. But in Ali, when we're talking about this, it might be like 20,000 segments, or even more. So the segment become very, very defined, right? For example, a segment for 500 person, for 500 person on a segment. So that's why we call it a micro segmentation rather than a macro segmentation. So I would say the answer is micro segmentation, and the answer is that take more time to work with someone. For example, like the people who are not in China, take more time to work with someone called a data broker. In US, the best data broker is Axiom, AXCIOM, Axiom. Also Experian. So they are a data broker. They are helping you to connecting all this data for your company. Of course, there's another data broker that people hate and love is Facebook. Right? Very good resources if you're a business, if you're doing business, right? Because they are the people who can telling you that, what is your customer like. Yeah. But then that's why I say people hate it and like, because as a customer, you don't like it. But as a business, you really like to work with Facebook, Twitter as well, right? For China, it's like Weixin, WeChat, also Weibo, social media side. But I think one important part I want to mention about it is not how big the data you have. The much important part is the coverage. So when we invest in the company, like they said they are working on big data, usually I will, for example, like you, right? I would say, you are the company providing this service. I would say, how about I take a customer to you, and you give them 1 million of your customer to this company, and you have to give me the answer. What is the coverage for your company to provide a service to this company? If it's coverage less than 60%, I would say don't do it. Because 60% is only talking about the coverage, right? The coverage, not about the second question I'm asking. The second question I will ask for you is that the provider that you have the coverage, I'm going to ask each of this customer whether they are female or male. And for many companies, after I ask this company, right, the whole value will be down to 20% or 15%. It's not worthwhile for you to work with a company that you can only cover 50% or 15% of the customer, that they can only provide you a female or male with accuracy higher than 85%. Because female and male is very easy to guess, right? So this is the answer for me. Usually I say coverage, number one. Accuracy, number two. But the accuracy, the test part for it is that, can you tell me he's a male or female? If the accuracy is less than 80%, no way. And that's why people find so hard to compete with Ali, even after I left. Because in Ali, usually we can provide more than 95% coverage if you're coming to us. And then if you're asking me, that's a female or male, 85% accuracy. Right? So then you're asking a question, a more defined question later, right? What's the age group? Right? What's the interest for this person? Right? And do he has a travel plan this year? Then you will see this is like 5% of the data is covered by a single vendor. There, right? So just bear in mind, huge data doesn't matter. It's more on when I have 1,000 customers here, who can help me with this 1,000 customers? And what's the coverage for this 1,000 layer? And what's the accuracy that you provide? How many attributes you can provide it to me, right? In order for me to have a better data persona for the person, right? So it's like a reverse. It's like a reverse engineering. It's not that how much data you have. It's workable for a small company because then it is much better for you to spend, not to spend too much money on rubbish data. So remember that on board data is always like a T sharp. The T in here is a board data. So I want to know how this person going to this side and this side and that side, right? But on this T here is called a deep data. The more that I learn about this customer, I'm going to go deep, right? So the question that I say about lottery is more on a T, on here. Because I want to know more about this person in each of this area. Not deep, but broad. But then if if I'm going into a shopping decision, right, it's a deep decision. So remember that, right? Then after that, in order to do this, if you have a T strategy, the problem that you want to answer is a long decision or a short decision will become very different. Because when you have a long decision, it means that I need to know the data of this person in a historical way, right? But if it's a short decision, it's much important for me to get data that are what happened in that instance. For example, if this person has decided to go to Shanghai and already booked for a hotel, and what is the next action and this guy will do in the next 2 days? Maybe a restaurant recommendation, and then you have to decide whether this guy is a business traveling or a leisure traveling, and you have to design this right as well. So short decision, long decision, broad data, and deep data will be very important for you to having what I'm saying is that you really need to have a data architect, not just have all the data all put it all together. You need really to know what is my broad data strategy and what is my deep data strategy and what kind of problem that I want to resolve with my business. Searching engine is very different to recommendation, right? Advertisement is also very different to a recommendation engine. So, any other? Yeah.
One problem we are having at the moment is like we have our own data, but then we want to like incorporate like the public data. I am from logistics company. So one of the problem we are having is that we have our own data, our collected data, and we like store and organize our way. But then now we are trying to incorporate the public data, let's say the traffic light and stuff. But then we have the problem of like the incompatibility with the data. So like it is like, for example, the red line. Like sometimes the red line in my country is like each province like organize and collect themselves. So some they have the yellow line, some just no, yes no, and we're having a problem with like how to like incorporate it in our data and to make sense out of that like aggregate data, not only our data but also the public data.
Okay, it's hard to answer a specific question, right? You really need to go in deep into that. But I have tips for you guys. Your competitor, for sure, will not give the data to you.
Wow.
But there is some case, even in Ali, right? I shouldn't say this, but this is the real world. When a lot of people think, how can I get data from Ali? It's so hard. We go into a department and ask them, can Ali providing data to me, but I'm also doing the e-commerce. No way. But then there is people who are doing the ERP system for a small seller, for each of the small seller. And this ERP provider actually has 60% of the data that some e-commerce part data on Alibaba as well. So when you look into the logistics, look into people who are going up and down on your logistic process. You remember, do you understand what I say? Look into the labor, which is not doing the business, the same business with you, but are related. And also look into the logistic chain. You actually provide, you have the logistic chain on the next loop, right? On also the loop that before you. So what I'm saying is they look around on the people who are connected with you, but they also have some kind of data there and work with them. Right. Don't have in mind on saying that okay, maybe this guy a competitor would like to share with me. No, do not. But But also there is some secret sauce in there. There's a few secret sauce that are important for most of the commerce. One is the payment data. And the second is the APP access data. Mobile apps data. And also there is called people's moving data. Moving. Okay. Or locational data moving. So those are the data that people like to pay around. Because if what people want to target me, right, as a Hong Kong company, I think you will find very difficult time to recommend something that I will buy today because I'm in Hangzhou. And if you recommend a restaurant for me in Hong Kong, no way, you're wasting your time or wasting your money as well. So the location is so important that you understand what is the customer are doing right now. I give you a very interesting example, right? In Ali, I have developed a very special attribute in Ali that not many people in e-commerce were doing this even now after a few years, called whether this guy are finding something while they're busy. While they're busy. It's really hard to translate this word called guan. If you guys are Chinese, maybe you can understand what is a guan. Guan means you were just walking around in the shopping center doing nothing, but maybe there's something nice I want to buy, but today I don't have that define the product I want to buy, so I'm just window shopping. For a guy who's doing window shopping, the KPI for us is not to make them buy. It's to make them see more, because later they will buy. Or they want to put that on the basket, but they don't want to buy today. Or they want to put that into a wish list. So in order to find this out, right, I have an algorithm to say the number of time he's in the site and the number of click within that time. The more that he click, the density of the click means that he's busy. When he's busy, it's much more like he's not window shopping. It's more like he wants to get something quick. So you really want to act more like a shopping engine, not a shopping center. You see what I mean? So in order to define something this way, it's much easier for us to find out whether this guy wants to do a short decision or a long decision, because if he's busy, he must want to sign something deliberately. But if it's like click, and then a few seconds later, and another click, maybe he's like drinking a coffee, going to the toilet, coming back, and then you really not in the time to push that for the shopping at that moment. Okay? So just giving an example on some of the attributes that you develop is so important in order to decide whether you give something to the person. Okay? Any other?
I want to ask a follow-up question. So you mentioned the importance of data architect. Is the one who will organize, design the data strategy, how to organize, store them. So do you have any advice on like the best practice, best strategy to approach this?
Okay, I think it's a very good question, but it should be very relevant to all you guys. Define your problem properly before you try to find the data. There's too many people in this world, even in China, the company that I advise, like to connect all this data and think that the data will be useful in the future automatically. Right? There's too many people like to do this. Get data first. Data is treasure. It's diamond. Let's do it. Get all this thing. But I don't think this way will work practically. It should be that I have a small problem, especially for you, because when you're asking this question, I can see that from the question that you asked, you didn't really break down your problem into a small problem. So break down your problem into a small problem, and then find the small problem that is much more possible to resolve by data. Then do it in a small loop. In a small loop. Don't think about something in a big loop. Because in a big loop, there's a lot of broken part in the big loop. It's so hard for you to work around with a small loop. For example, like the customer that I acquire, can I provide him essentially the things that I done in 2012. Each of a customer, when they come into Ali, in 3 months later, I can provide him a probability of their leaving Ali in the next 2 months to the mansion. So each of the customer, actually, I providing a probability of this person will leaving Taobao in the next 2 months. Then we really need to giving a much more value to this customer, right? Because I already providing a probability of there. But let me give you, I'll tell you more something. When we guess if this person will leave Taobao, we need to have a 2 number there. The probability of right and the probability is of wrong. Not just the probability of right. It's wrong and right as a probability. It's very important. Because on machine learning, we always want to take into consideration on 2 samples. One is called the right sample, and then another one is the wrong sample. Because I want to learn from the yes, and also I want to learn from the right, from the no. So when you're providing a KPI, usually in the normal practice, not the digital transformation, right? Usually we like to define our KPI in expected positive, right? Not many companies will define their KPI on expected negative, right? If you do not have an expected negative, right, you will not find data to tell you when will happen, when is happening on an expected negative. Of course, it will be even cleverer if you can put unexpected positive and unexpected negative on your bracket of KPI. Once you have a smart KPI there, right, it's much easier for you to work around with what you have said. That I want to find a very smart, small loop. And then when I have enough data, I tackle it. And then once I get it right, I find another harder problem to tackle. And then I find another harder problem to tackle. And that is actually the way to do it. For the second question for you today, practically, and not for the economists, but practically, in how can I start it to becoming a smart company, a digital smart company? I think the only way to do it is to find a small loop. Do it. And then you get the hang of it, and then you're going to do more, and then you get the hang of it, and you do more, and then you find that actually there's some third-party data very useful for me. So I'm going to buy some third-party data and helping me to solve the problem better. And then I'm going to buy more data. Remember, right? And then think about there's some implicit data there. And there's some implicit data there, and also there's some explicit data as well. Right? Implicit data and explicit data is so different in order to connect all this data. Okay, maybe that I'm going too in depth into how you're going to practice the data transformation. But I want to tell you some tips. When sometime later you come across this, and then you maybe remember what I'm saying: the start decision, non-decision, bulk data, deep data, and then always beginning with a small loop. And the reason why there's so many failed projects in the government, even in your country maybe, is because of lack of KPI. Define the KPI. And also the government like to do something more. Government don't want to do something small because it's not easy for them to say, I'm doing something small for the government. And that's why a success, right? So for big companies, it's very, very hard for a big company to say, I'm going to do something small. And then I'm getting hang of it. But for you guys, if you are A round, B round company, it's much easier. Because you are still can get the hang of the problem as well as the data. The problem of a small company is more on what this has just mentioned. I don't know where the data is. I'm doing a logistic, but how can I getting all this logistic data from the other company? But I giving a suggestion to the people who usually like to say this. I will tell them that, do you really think that you make use of your internal data enough? So the data that you already have, are you going to bring them on board for the problem you want to solve now? Or instead, you are thinking that there is something that outside there and the third party can help me. I think you have to think about this. If you're not working well with your data that you have on your hand, right, and you already drop that and go, oh, I'm going to look for something, a beautiful data outside. It's really hard to do that. I think there's any other question? You have one last question? I meet my goal today. There's no way I can finish my PPT in 2 hours.
So my question is, the data for B2C businesses is different from those companies that are doing B2B. So we are in the business of payments and we cater businesses. And I was wondering what sort of data would be important for those companies that we service. Similar to Alipay, for example, you have the data for the consumers, right? And you have the data for businesses. So I would like to know what would be for the data for the businesses, what would be more helpful for them?
I think the short answer for your question will be whether you can make use of the chain of B2B2C. So if you are servicing another B, but that B is actually serving the customer, if you can get in data that understand more on how he serves his customer, it might be easier for you to do that. For example, like Salesforce. What Salesforce was doing, right, it's a great company in the US. What Salesforce is doing is helping a business to helping them better serve the customer, right? So there's a way to doing it. There's a way to doing it. Like even for Ali, we have 1688.com for doing a wholesaler, and then there's a seller in Taobao buying product from Alibaba to Taobao to see, and then we can work on what product has been, buying from 1688 and then selling to the customer. In order to help this business, I would say, okay, there's something C customer data can help you more understand what kind of product you are selling today. Okay, the guy on the back, I haven't answered the question yet, but I want to continue and then maybe 10 minutes later, we're going to take more questions because maybe there's something that I mentioned in the later part will, can simulate your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually more curious on your on how Alibaba approach data scientists and data statistician within the organization, because you guys have been mining all this data for a long time, right? And it seems like data has become like a core, fuel for the whole company. So, do you find your data scientists and statistician in productization, in marketing? How do you find your human resources in that sense? That's possible.
I think it's still a short question from the long. Short answer for the long question. Tools. You need to providing enough tools to the people in the company, right? You cannot just say, work harder, use more data. But this guy is actually a business guy, right? They have no way that they can access the data or the analysis. You need to providing a much easier tools to the people in the organization. That's actually very important because I have a mind want to using the data, but you don't have providing the tools to me. Yeah, I think that one reason that I'm doing better than other people who before me in Ali is because I'm not a data analyst. Right, my career before I becoming a data guy, I'm a product management guy. So whatever I think in the company, I think in a product way. What's the problem? How can I solve this problem? Whose problem? What's the cost of fixing this problem? And how can I say I already fixed this problem? Right? I keep this loop because maybe that this guy is a VP and he says that I want to know more about how my customer buying my product. I say, okay, this is the problem, right? Let me drill down. Is that what you mean, or you want to understand how your competitor compete with you as well? Yes. Okay. When I know this problem, I will say, okay, let me touch this, let me face this, and see what happens. This is the problem. The data is not enough, so I'm going to ask my boss to say, how about I spend another $1 billion to buy some data outside, right? Because he wants to know the competitors' data. How can I have competitors' data? There's no way I can get that, right? So you need to have a data buy data, but you need to I need to tell my boss the reason why I'm doing this because of that. So a secret thing about this is that when I know this, I will write a PRD for this, right? A product requirement document. But in a digital era, usually I also need to write a data requirement document. I need to write a data requirement document in order to cover this problem. Then, another important part, or the most important part, is how can I know I'm success? Well, how can I know I have solved your problem? It's a loop. So in the beginning, I will tell this guy that the problem is that, and if I can provide this solution to you, right, and I success, and you success, right? So this guy will begin to understand that it is the way to tell success and fail in the organization. And I think there's a good sign that I see in 2012. After 2 years, I work in this way. Many VP come to me and say, do my job first. Because I'm more important. Don't work with this guy. I need more resources because I can see he's enjoying with what we have provided. It's also a positive reinforcement, right? It's also a positive. So that's why I work on small problem, but work on small important problem, and not work for small important problem where it is a data-driven problem, a data-driven solution for it. If you cannot get this free thing right, for sure you have a failed project. Because you don't know the problem, and you don't know this problem can be solved by data, right? And you do not know how to measure success. No way. No way you can get it, right? But after you have the 3, 4, 5 success projects like this, people love you. And then you will become a much better, organization. But I think things not that straightforward because in 2013, there's a very big problem that I have to face, where it is in this picture. Mobile becoming the major touch point for most of the customers. Where in the old days, all my tools, all my data architect is based on PC. And I have so much problem that half of the people using PC and half the people are using mobile. And on PC world, if you guys are on an internet platform, you know that we all rely on click-through, right? But in mobile don't have click-through. We have PV, but mobile don't have PV, right? And the people who spend times on mobile so different to the PC. They come 20 times a day. And the PC, they come 2 times a day, but longer. So the information or the data that you're connecting is much more small and is like fragmented. So it's a very fragmented. How can you connect all this data and then put this all together? It becomes a very hard problem. But it's also good news for me because at that time I make a decision to my team. I say, forget about PC, right? We start to the mobile, and then don't worry about PC. So I think I do a gamble, right? So I spend most of the time on mobile analysis. I don't spend time on PC analysis anymore, right? And then, of course, I'm doing it right because in the 2016, it's like 80% of our transactions is actually coming from mobile. So PC becoming less and less important. The reason why I tell you this story is that don't imagine data is alive every day. Actually, by the time we create the data, the data is beginning to die or decay. The data will decay. Because last week when we have many people in China who in Beijing, we had a talk about how do we build a good data middle platform in China. And the guy from Construction Bank, he said the most thing I hate is that we still have the attribute for this person who are in the university back 4 years ago without deleting it. And some people are still using this to promoting a customer. So data is already create and create and create every day, because no one's going to doing the housekeeping for the attribute. So eventually you get more and more and more, but it's not declared and it's not deleted. So the more data you have, the more rubbish you have. Okay, that is maybe answer your question partly. Okay. Let me go along and see. This picture I just want to tell how important is mobile. That's it. And how important is mobile in payment, even on Grab Pocket. And how important is machine learning. Actually, that's another disruptive point for me. Because when data growth and the algorithm change because of the machine learning, I need to put more and more machine learning into my organization. Because before, most of the people who work on our team is more coming from mathematics background or from statistic background. Not many people are on data science background. So I'm going to hire more people from outside, but I want to hire someone who are the best, because that is what Jack's mission. So my criteria on getting the best data scientist, that he must be coming from the top 10 university in US. And then he must working for Google, Facebook, all the companies that have big data. And then he must have been getting one promotion in that company, right? Then I hire him. And it's very important. Don't hire someone who are a doctor that without practical experience. And then he's going to learn in your company, right? Because you don't have time to learn. And then once he's going into this big company, how about this big company making a mistake, right? So I don't want to make a mistake as what they have made. So I want to get someone who can promote in Facebook, promote in Google, to become a most important person in Ali, right? This is actually quite important. Even after, not for the people on the top, right? Usually when I interview people for data science graduate, a question that I ask is that whether you have joined some competition, and what do you get from that competition while you were studying, okay? So practical. Data science is not a research project. Data science is actually a practical project. AI, in the last few years, on the paper for AI is growing dramatically. China is not in a too bad position. And then I'm going to providing you guys a video.
This phone call too much. I want you to listen to it very, very carefully.
Yep.
It sounds like an ordinary call, but
Can you turn the volume high?
just at the end, it's okay.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'd like to reserve a table for Friday the 3rd.
It sounds like an ordinary call at first, but trust me, the twist at the end is worth it.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'd like to reserve a table for Friday the 3rd.
Yeah, hold on one moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hold on one second. So Friday, November 3rd. How many people?
For 2 people.
2 people?
Yeah.
What time?
at 5 p.m.
Okay. And your name?
The first name is Daniel. That's Daniel.
Okay. You're all set.
Who's the robot? The customer? Or the restaurant? Or both? That's the future. Okay? That's the future. So you have the assistant to help you before a restaurant. And the company have a robot to answer you. And you, both of the party do not have to do nothing. Reserve for a table. Right? And what is that going to change our business? Right? Change our business. That's a picture there from McKinsey about what is different between the 21st century commerce world and as well as the 20th world. I would say, I mean, this is quite general, right? I want to say the most important thing about two things. One is called augmented analysis. The other is called autonomous. Two words. Autonomous, the difference between automatic and autonomous, can someone recall? What's the difference between autonomous and automatic?
Autonomous is no human involved. It's do it by only by itself.
I think if you check on the Google, autonomous is more on things are doing automatically manner, but it's actually adaptive with the data. So whatever the data has changed, right? It's like an autonomous car. It's not an automatic car. It's an autonomous car, or it's an autonomous builder, right? It's autonomous. So autonomous against automatic has a huge difference because it has to be working in uncertainty, under uncertainty. Okay, now what is meant by analysis and augmented analysis? Augmented analysis means that you're using much more a machine learning way to doing analysis rather than in an old way decision tree. It's more on you're going to use much more machine learning way. In Ali 2015, we have a secret weapon, right? Which is also a secret weapon for Facebook called lookalike. Anyone heard of a lookalike?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't need to mention about lookalike. But lookalike is actually augmented tools analysis. It's not a normal analysis. So you can see that augmented analysis has become the major part of the future business intelligence or city intelligence. Because we need to have much I repeat the word, augmented way to looking into something. Because we have more data now. Okay? So that's another sexy word that you have to remember.
Excuse me, sir. Can you repeat the augmented analysis part again?
Augmented analysis, if you look going into Google, it means that while you're doing analysis, make use of machine learning more. When you make use of machine learning more, machine learning is always rely on the loop that I just mentioned to you, right? You have to define what is right, and you have to define what is wrong, and you have to define the probability of right and wrong, so that I can learn from it. I can learn from the yes, I can learn from the no, and then I'm going to develop my algorithm, right? And then I'm going to test again, and then I'm going to come back and I say, I'm going to learn again. And then I'm going to test. I'm going to learn, right? So it's a loop of test, learn, test, learn, test, learn. And then I become much better in making the same decision. That is lookalike, because lookalike just means that you have this group of people who say they love me, and I'm going to find out more, and other 500 people like them with the 2,000 attributes that I have to understand them. This is lookalike. But then, my guess might be wrong in the first instance, right? Because when I get this group, I'm using Alibaba's data, and I find out that some of the guess is wrong, and some of the guess is right. So I'm going to develop and say, how about some of the attributes not that good coverage, or some of the data is rubbish. So I'm going to I'm going to get all this bad data away. I'm going to try again. So I am actually also training a better quality of data as well, in a way, with the problem. Okay? So it's a shooting target. It's a shooting and moving target, continuously doing this, and in order to enhance my algorithm. Okay? So that is what's important about augmented analysis, as well as autonomous, because those two can be mixed. Right? Those two can be mixed. 5G, I mean, if you look in 5G and also IPv6, I think it's a very important infrastructure for us to have a better three things in here, right? Fast, instant response, and a massive connectivity. I'm not going to translate all these three words to you guys, so you can understand what this means. When we have 4G, actually we are fast, but not that fast. But the most important thing is more on instant responsive, because in 4G you don't really have the instant response. And then, you know, we have more mobile technology, and we have more of this device. Let me.
Co-op shooter like Fortnite, or sit tight, because the future of gaming and everything else is about to change forever. If you look up into the corner of your phone, you're probably used to seeing a little indicator that says 4G LTE, or 3G, or God forbid, 2G. And you've come to understand that it probably has something to do with your phone's connection to your mobile network. The higher the G, the faster the connection. It's pretty easy to follow. The G stands for generation, and each subsequent generation refers to a specific minimum speed, connectivity, and reliability necessary to classify that network as a particular generation. 1G let us talk to each other. 2G let us send messages. 3G gave us broad data and internet, and 4G LTE made it a whole lot faster. But all that's in the soon-to-be past, because up on the horizon is 5G. And while you may be thinking that 5G is just a little faster, a little more reliable, and a little newer, it's actually a massive breakthrough that's going to change the way devices connect to the internet, and more importantly, to each other. In fact, as 5G rolls out over the next 2 years, it's going to change, well, everything with a wireless connection, which at this point is, well, pretty much everything. So what's so special about a 5G future? Well, first of all, it's fast. Like, really fast. Like 20 gigabits per second over wireless fast. Like 100 to 250 times faster than 4G. Because by comparison, 4G provides speeds, on average, of about 10 to 20 megabits a second. So that's like going from streaming one Netflix movie in HD to streaming 400 movies in 8K at the same time. And while that's really impressive, that's not the most impressive part. What sets 5G aside is its crazy low latency rate, which is the amount of delay between the sending and receiving of information. Now, 4G tends to average about 100 to 200 milliseconds. And to be fair, 100 milliseconds is fast. Human reaction time is about 200 to 300 milliseconds. But 5G will get it down to 1 millisecond. That's almost real time. And being able to send and receive information in what is essentially real time means that we can use 5G to replace real-time interactions. What does that mean? With 5G, you'll be able to interact with people, objects, or characters controlled by someone else with no lag on either side. So play a real-time first-person shooter on your phone. Control virtual objects with other people simultaneously. Put on a headset and fly a drone or drive a car that's somewhere else in real life. Or, better yet, let it drive itself. That might be one of the biggest breakthroughs in 5G, a network of self-driving cars all sending data between each other and communicating with traffic lights, road sensors, aerial drones, and so on. Think about it. Human reaction speed is 200 milliseconds, and we still have accidents every day. Imagine if your car could react and communicate its reaction to hundreds of cars around it, all within a millisecond. Not only could we end car accidents, we could end traffic altogether. Hundreds of self-driving cars going lightning fast to your destination with no risk that they'll hit each other because they all know exactly where they are in real time, reacting to the actual world around them. Autonomous or remotely controlled trains, delivery trucks, even airplanes could be on the horizon in the near future. In fact, forget cars for a second and think of all robotic devices. Surgeries could be performed from the other side of the world with robots controlled in real time by expert surgeons being assisted by other expert surgeons in other parts of the world simultaneously. That could be saving lives in situations where time and distance are the difference between life and death. Factories can be staffed by robots that can communicate their tasks and position to each other, allowing them to not only do more, but do it more efficiently and wirelessly over a 5G network. Imagine a fleet of drones flying over a field of crops using sensors on the ground to sort, pick, feed, and water individual plants, all on their own. 5G will revolutionize the future, and companies have already spent billions to set up their networks and to fund new technologies that can use it. But that's not to say 5G is perfect. One major drawback has to do with why it's so fast. See, 5G uses a mix of frequencies, with most of the attention on the brand new millimeter waves that are compared to the 15 to 40 centimeter long waves used by 4G. And shorter waves and higher frequencies have a massive problem. They don't go very far. Whereas on a 4G network you can go 10 kilometers and barely lose signal, 5G maxes out at about 300 meters. And it can't go through walls, or even bad weather like rain. So what does that mean? Well, it's a gift and a curse. Having such a short signal distance means building more transmitters. A lot more transmitters. Like multiple transmitters every couple of hundred meters in every direction. On the other hand, it also means that you can pack more devices into one area. Now, 4G allows connectivity to 1 million devices in 500 square kilometers. That's about the size of Chicago. 5G, on the other hand, will allow 1 million devices in 1 square kilometer, or a little smaller than Grant Park in Chicago. So, how far away are we from reaping the benefits of 5G, self-driving fleets, and robot surgery? Well, at least a couple of years. 5G is expected to be fully rolled out by March. Oh, shooter.
Okay, so what does that mean to me? Will be very easy in 2 words: more data. Then the next is harder to manage. It's harder to manage when you have more data in such a way, and it's harder to manage in a real-time way as well. Remember that I just mentioned to you, if I want to recommend something to you, right, I need to know your historical data and also need to know the instant signal that you have sent to me, that you have just looked into a plan like this. I'm going to recommend something that are related to this plan. So the incendiarity that I have to do in the e-commerce is much harder. But the data has become much richer. But how would I put in all this data together in order to guess which product would you like to buy? Huge data, huge opportunity, better algorithm. That's actually what the technology trend looks like. And here is the Gartner 2019 technology trend that I just mentioned about autonomous equipment. That is actually not enhanced analysis. It's a wrong translation. It's an augmented analysis. AI-driven development, digital twins, age calculation, and so and so. I apologize. I think I will not provide you guys a break because I have more to go through. If you not, you guys no complain. If you complain, you can go to the toilet and go around. I don't mind. Let me try to complete something that I want to deliver today. The AI capability that it can be described like a robot, but actually when we're using it in a different way. For example, like we're using it to recognize if you are you, right? While you come across the customer. Of course, we can also define your emotional, right? But don't look at this as there's some startup already using this technology for interview, for doing interview for a large company, as a first filtering process. And people in US also develop, like if you take a picture with a dress in the past, where you can only take a picture itself, but now once you take the picture, it can provide you what is this dress like. Is it for gender, is a woman dress, or the length is a full, and also the style as well, right? It's going to structurize what you have seen in the apparel industry. Of course, just now, right, this picture is quite important. If you guys are in the retail industry, this is how Xiang define what do you need to know about your customer in a persona way. So it's product demand, purchase channel, ideology of purchase, spending power, health and habit of media usage, the brand preference. But most important, I want to mention is about the thing in the top, find purchase opportunity in the market, and that's why, and that's why in the advertising world we are so much relying on the what's the word? DMP, right? Because you need to rely on DMP to understand if this person has going through a different site. Of course, it's also giving us the customer a lot of the a problem. For someone like me, someone asked me to help them buy a gold in the airport, right? A gold nugget, and then bring it into China, helping them, helping a friend doing this. And after that, every time my taxi arrived to the airport, they always call me with an advertisement, do you want to buy more gold? I mean, that is actually not a good experience at all, because you are just guessing that I'm going to buy another gold. Another problem for the mail, right? 2 weeks ago, I go to Macau to providing a conference. And after that, I keep getting gambling websites. But that's not the worst. I keep getting nightclub message to my phone, right? And what about if my wife looking into that and say, hey, how come you're getting all this message from them? It's quite embarrassing, right? But every time, it takes about half year for me to wrap
need
that
to tell
up.
her first.
Like,
Before
it's
she knows.
half years, always pumping this same message to me. Gamble, like club, gamble, like club, and all that. And I'm going to kill that, channel. So it's also that when you know the person, when you know the merchant, and you know the feedback data, that's the way to go for most of the website. The reason why you want to know this person, right, is because you want to know how they buy and how they use the product. And then you want to know whether they are buying, what's the feedback for their purchase, right? That is a big feedback loop there. And what's the best example for that will be, have you heard of a website called Stitch Fix? Right? Stitch Fix is doing something very similar to this, right? So every time I'm providing the address to your home, right? You can say I don't want it, or you can say I want this and that. It's actually I'm already collecting data from you. But very funny that because I'm not the expert on like consumer behavior. But the question they ask on Stitch Fix, the first question usually they ask is that how many times you go out for dinner for a week? It's the first question. The second question is that what earring would you like to wear, right? Instead of asking you what dress would you like, they're asking this kind of funny question. Funny question for a male, right? But may not be a funny question for for a lady. Maybe ladies, right? Because earring is very important, and also that the times that you go out for dinner actually define what kind of dress and the frequency for your buying for the dress in the future. Look, this is actually the feedback loop that the first time I write my first book, this is the feedback loop. Make data easier to use in order to describe, diagnostic, predict, and actionable, make a good action. This is the first loop. But then after you do, you are working with a much more project, then you beginning to guess, how can I have a better touch point? Connection data, storage, reflection, and identify also associated data with the application on the top. It's actually a big loop. The better that you're making a digital tools or digital application, the better that you can guess what kind of data do I need. The better that you connect more data, right? The easier that you can work using data to resolve the problem. It's a loop. So I'm glad that in the beginning of the class, right, you guys mentioned about this feedback loop. Essentially, when we work on data, it's all about how can I find the loop, and then the next thing is how can I have more data in order to have this loop tend to perfect to getting all this data. Just already mentioned lookalike audience. If you go to YouTube or you search a word called AI created advertisement, you will find this right away. Because in the past, right, we try to find who is my customer. Now they're working on something. Say, if I know my customer, what's the best advertisement contents? So this is it. So they send each of the advertisements to you differently, to a different person. So that it's actually the content changed, the audience didn't change. But before it's more like I want to target my advertisement to different customer. Now it's not. I got the customer. I'm going to have this content and change to each of you. Robot, I was mentioned, right? Robot in the future will be like both fly on a robot. This video, have you guys watched before? Yes, I will not. So artificial intelligence is not a separate technology application. We are now on a weak AI. We're going into a strong AI stage. But what if we can go into what will be changed in a strong AI age? What would that means to the business? But before that, I'm going to mention this is actually also a very important point of view for me, right? It may not be right. The point of view for me is that I'm always looking into a data problem and in this way, whether I can define this problem well or is a very not defined problem. Whether I have this data centralized or whether I have this data fragment. These three different kind of data-driven project is different. Because on the left-hand side, left top, there is a much cheaper project because you have all the data in the center already, but you can solve the problem. On the right-hand side there, fragmented data need to be having a very good data governance in order to have all this data grabbed together in order to work on the same problem. So the reason why you have to move this to there, because you can only solve the problem partly with this. And you can see that it might be that if you can find out a way to solve this problem better, you earn more money with it. For example, a friend of mine from the US coming to China and then start up a company to find out the residual value of a second-hand car. You see who will pay the money for it? Insurance company, right? Really want to know how much is a second-hand residual value for a second-hand car. The second player want to get this data is the car manufacturer as well. Good money this person earn. But then the reason why he's doing better performance than the others is because most of the people in the past, in order to solve this problem, the problem is well defined, right? Because I want to know the residual value of a second-hand car. It's a very defined problem. In order to know, most of people will think that, okay, just like the $10 notes, go to Taobao. In China, we have the website called Guazi, Also, we have the website called 汽车之家, two very big websites in China. Most of the people will try to find out the transaction amount in order to predict the residence value for the car. But my friend, he's getting all this fermentation from where? From the car repairing company. Smart. So he found a way to break through this by getting the data from the car repairing company in order to know the reason why this car has a not as good as others in terms of the second-hand car resident value. Then they earn money because the accuracy is 20% better. Not just because the prediction is better, also because of the reason that they're providing to the company as well. For example, like a 7-people car has less resident value than a 5-people car, for example. And also that a car with a bigger engine usually has less, in proportion, right, less resident value to the others. So he provided the reason as well, and makes he can get a better decision as better description of the decision. Not just the decision, but the decision for actionable approach. This is actually the tool PPT that I developed by Sequoia in US. So when we're looking into people who are building application as a startup, we always like to ask, is there a clear and well-defined question that for us to conduct training against the model-based clear indicator? The second one is that what is the MVP for this company? The MVP for this company. Of course, a lot of people will say, yeah, we have a very good machine learning algorithm, right? And I will ask, what is the accuracy for that? For example, like the resident value for a second-hand car. But the most important question that you should ask is that, what is the fault tolerance user experience when it's not accurate? So it means the value that you get out of accuracy, also the risk that you get out of wrong, right? So that's a risk for it. So we must take care of the risk when you have this kind of experience. For example, like I'm guessing very right for you for the recommendation, but then because you also buy a lot of things for your wife, right? So the recommendation will be wrong when your wife using your account coming in Taobao and will keep providing a man's product to your wife. So that means that yes, I'm very accurate when you are using this account, but I have found no way to come back and say, okay, maybe it's not him who using this account. Can I switch that? You see what I mean? So accuracy sometimes also means that the fail can be very big when the accuracy is wrong, right? So using the recommendation engine, you guys can understand that. The third one is the operator user should participate in the loop, because what you have done in there is in a loop, right? The bad thing about a positive loop, even for human, is that it means that you are too confident about yourself, right? Or you are very confident for your algorithm. But what if something wrong out of it? You have no way to dictate the wrong. Then you will fail very fast. In a technology way, it's the same. If you have a very defined loop there, but you do not have the review for the loop, right, from the human or from the expert, you find that very dangerous as well. So in Ali, I always tell my management that auto also means high risk, because when you're doing the automatic way, right, it's hard for you to review the automatic project or the autonomous project. At the same time, customization, all that, I don't want to mention about the purpose. On the next two in here is more on investment. Business model, marketing strategy, critically, it's not about data. This is about data. Decide the need of data based on defined problem. Remember today, I think I have mentioned 5 times or more than 5 times about this. Please remember, define problem is the beginning of a project. Once you define it, check your first party data. And that's why I say don't work on the third party data yet. Work on your first party data, focus, then you can focus on the missing data and build strategy to enhance this data. But you need to use your first data first before you focus on missing data. Proactively supplement missing data from the public and the shared data source. Develop a strategy operation with company. The next tool, the reason why I have this tool, right, is because when you build your engine, you're relying on the data from the third party. You need to make sure this guy will continuously provide this data to you in an SLA manner, right, with a service agreement. Otherwise, you're killing yourself. You're killing yourself because you might be out of business because of someone say, I'm not going to provide the data to you anymore. Then you'll run out of business. So the last two is very important. This is the next step when we see an enterprise becoming a very data-intensive step. I would say, usually the hardest part will be the 4th step. Develop the capability for in-depth analysis of massive data. It's totally different to the first 1, 2, 3, because the first 1, 2, 3 has been working in this world for more than 25 years, right? A bank using data for a long time. So a bank practice 1, 2, 3 for many years. But a bank isn't really going to the 4th part on when I have a mass data, right? How can I have a more in-depth analysis of it? And how can I make use of that for an autonomous project? How can I having an augmented analysis within the organization? This is the hard part. And the 5th is that mentioned about reserve of the external data. 6, 7, 8 is not for a normal company. 6, 7, 8 is that like company like Alibaba, where they wanted to be they want to build a data ecosystem. Then they will have a 6, 7, 8. If you are a company not up to an ecosystem, right, you don't need to have a 6, 7, 8. But you can work with someone who has this 6, 7, 8. You can work for someone who has the ability on 6, 7, 8. It means that in the future, right, you really need to work with a big platform. Either 1 or 2 or 3. You need to work with a big data platform because there's no way that you can have data more than Facebook, right? You can no way that you can more data more than in China, more than Alibaba. So you need to choose a platform that are open enough, right, or standard enough, or easy enough for you to access the data service. Not necessarily data, sometimes the data service. I think Ali has a long time history on sharing this because we have a platform, I remember, called Taobao Open Platform, where they share a lot of data when the customer say yes to you. For example, we will share the data when the customer say yes, this company is working for. Go to mass data. Mass data means that you have a lot of data. Big data is actually, it's an algorithm. It's something that comes together with the skeleton, blood, and also the application. This is the review that we have done on 2016 on Alibaba big data strategy. We want to make use of the platform to promote efficiency, collaboration, and innovation with the platform, and the mechanism of co-create, reuse, and settlement, in order to have providing a flexible small front end to the small company. This is actually the vision. we're going to build the data platform in order to help small companies to be creative. So the small companies do not have to worry about how can we build such a huge data architect and such a huge investment on data. That is actually the vision. The reason why we have to build this because I think it may not be so easy for you guys to understand is that data broken fast. Data broken fast. So when you're building the platform, the architect, right? By the time you build the platform, the data already broken. Maybe, I'm not going to explain this further, but data broken all the time. I have, let me see, this one is actually can conclude what I'm saying. That first party data that help us to find what happened. Why did it happen? What will happen in the future? And what can I do with it? And then instead of automatic way to making the decision again with the first party data, it's a decision making process for action. But once you can get hang of it, then we're going to put the third party in there and say, what if you have the third party data, right? What can you do with it? So what I mean is that forget about the third party first. Well, with this, and answer this question. If you can answer well, then you can, okay, let me find the third data, right? Other is this picture. Is centralized, is the problem defined, or if the data is centralized, should I work on here first, or should I more aggressive working on here, right? So centralized data plus the decentralized data, work on the defined data. Never going into this area when you are not prepared. Going to the area of legal data, decentralized data is very dangerous if you don't have that experience and in pocket. This is the picture I actually mentioned, I provided to the management at that time. This is the data technology. This is the data resources from internal and external. On the top, we have the data science to help doing the data mining, science and engineering. We also have a data product to build a data platform, and then a business intelligence on the top. So all this feed is actually servicing the whole company. And then we have the data quality and security to ensure that. Then we have the data governance, because data governance is more on human than the technology. Data governance is more on how can we work together with data on the organization. It's not an engine. But the data engine has to secure the quality and the security of the data usage. Then we come to the right-hand side on how can we store more data, how can we build more data product, and how can we provide more data science ability to the business as well as the business intelligence. Essentially a conclusion, a big conclusion on how can we make use of the data in Ali. Why I put this picture again? Because ultimately, we want to make use of data for action, not for diagnostic. We want to push all the way to action. Once we put all the way to action, right, we want to take care of how can I have more touch point of the customer, and how can I connect more data. So the picture become, I have another focus point, more on more data and more action. You see this picture, maybe you think that it's quite easy to connect data, but when you're looking at this picture, there's more device. There's more device that we have to think about in the future. People using information in the car. For example, like me, I have 3 mobile phones and 2 iPads, 1 computer. So for me, they have 6 touch points, right? And then I have a smart TV at home. Then I have Echo. So if you want to connect all this data for me, there's a lot of touch point. But plus, if I want to get this data in 3 years, it will be like this, right? Different device, 3 years, with the touch point. I think maybe you're looking into this picture, you already have had it, right? And if I ask you, how can you put all this data together in a refresh manner, means that I'm not going to use a phone anymore. So the phone is not in this picture anymore. The data is there. And when do you decide to delete all this data from my old phone, right? That is really hard. So how much data is too much? That's why I said, don't look into the data and say, I'm going to store all this data, maybe one day it will be useful. And it is not going to work, especially for a small company. I don't have time on the case study, but the reason why I'm providing this case study to you guys is that building an analytics-centric organization, the author writing this paper is actually the people who are the first people who are working on such organizations like in Facebook and Google. So they have a very good experience on that, and I think this paper is a very practical paper, not the paper from academic. Also, because you guys are, when I see in the profile, there's a lot of marketing need for a small company. That's why I put in the marketing in the age of machine learning. That's the two cases. I hope that you guys have time to looking in this two cases while we have no enough time to talk about this, because I think I want to spend the next 15 minutes to take questions. Yeah.
Actually, so Prof, I think that's a very good explanation. So I got a question to put some context. My company is doing conversational AI, so we build virtual systems, chatbot, using the power of natural language processing. So the current state of the AI right now, what's really talked about, it still requires human resources or human power to do the annotation, data training. Even I heard that Amazon for Alexa, they're utilizing a huge pool of people who still do training. But how do you see in the long run? Like, how will it be evolved? Will it be like that in the long run, or there's a possible development that it can be more autonomous, in your opinion?
I share a little bit on. I'm not the person on this project, right? But the person on this project in Ali is actually a very good friend of mine. He's at that time is in charge of this project on how to make a smart customer service in Ali. When I mentioned this with him, he told me that the problem for them is not is actually in a few different areas. One is how can I understand what the person needs when they call in, right? It's easy for a person to say I missed my password, or I want to get a new password. It's easy. But if a person call in to Taobao and say I buy a T-shirt yesterday, it doesn't fit. I want to complain, and there's a small hole in the T-shirt. Right? It will be very hard for the robot to understand what does that mean, right? So you really need to have a human to help on the robot until you have enough repeat case, right? So Ali, I know that the strategy for that is that try not to have the customer call in the phone, right? Try to push them using a text-based chatbot. Because in this case, I can ignore one of the technology that is not that mature yet, is that how to translating a voice into a text. With the person like me, who I have a Cantonese accent for Mandarin, I found that they have found difficult to understand my Mandarin, because I have a strong Cantonese accent. So we will fail in the first step because it's so hard for you to translate a slang onto a text. So we try to push that, right? Try to push more people using text. And then I can, cut across that, this first one. The second one is how can I have, I think I should mention a more important point. I say, in order to have this smart car customer related robot, what will be the technology you think most important you need legally? He said it's an auto reading technology. Auto reading means that it's easy to design a robot like Siri. Can you sing me a song? No, I don't want to sing. Just play around. But for consumer customer relationship, right? You really need to answer the question. So auto reading means that if I give you a manual in text, after the robot reading all this, right, you can answer everything about this book. Then you can save time, right? So it's the harder thing is that the machine do not have a good knowledge base to answer the question in a customer relationship manner. So I think that is in order to have this, right, my colleague at that time, he said 5 years. It's back like 1 year ago. So maybe 5-6 years later, we have a good auto reading technology in order to say, I give you the book, read it. I'm going to ask all the questions about this book, and he can answer the content of an operation manual.
I have a question. So this is more. So recently, we have election in Thailand, right? And then data play a big role because like all this suggestion. I realized when I watch one political party, right, video or something, then all my suggestions are from that one particular party, right? Then it can swing my opinion. It's like you're seeing one side of the equations. So I have to go in and click on every single party so I can get, so I can be better informed to make decisions, right? So then that made me realize what are other things besides political parties and things that data is actually all these suggestion, recommendation, and things like that are actually swinging one way, one and the other. And when is it the right time for the data governance or data person that like us to go in and intervene and be like, hey, for this, we have to have a more balanced view. This, we have to have a better way of looking at things. Yeah.
I bring your question into a more business perspective. If your friend like to buy T-shirt from Gap, you will also like to buy a T-shirt from Gap as well, right? Because you trust the taste or the experience from your friend as well. And that's what happened this is called a group bias, right? We also really easily to fooled by a group bias. Means that how about we vote on this group and see if we like this idea. Usually, if you vote like this, because everyone in there is under pressure. Also, everyone in there is reading the same information, so they're going to vote the same. So that's a mechanism people like to play around. But I want to give you a real example and research from a university about never trust too much about the news and also the opinion on Facebook or even on WeChat, because it's a self reinforcement. Because you don't like this friend, he will not in your Facebook. And if you don't like this friend, he will not be in your WeChat. So the WeChat you see every day is actually reinforce how you treated this guy as your friend, right? So whatever you put on the group makes the information cascade. Information cascade is a very dangerous situation because you are simply just trust what he's saying because it's cascaded, right? So there's some people argue about how to take more enemy into your WeChat then how to take more friends onto your WeChat, because you don't want to take someone with a different opinion onto your WeChat group. You'll be more smart. If you want to enjoy that people always talking the same language and same opinion as you, you'll be becoming more dumb.
Yeah.
So I think that's work for a lot of people. But if you are a company want to manipulate your customer, you can do so, right? As a person or as a business, right? As a business, maybe you want to manipulate this a little bit, right? Using this as a reinforced growth. For example, like there's some company like to put a good review on the top of a bad review. So that when you're looking at the product, it's okay, people think it's good. But it's just because that website didn't really surface the bad experience, right? So that you're always looking into a good experience in order to make a decision. But it's not as bad as an information cascade. An information cascade is very bad for smart people, because then you will become dumb. And it's in a very slow manner, because it's a WeChat. You enjoy WeChat and you enjoy everything with your friend.
We talk a lot about inclusiveness, responsibility as ecosystem builders and stuff, right? But we don't really touch on this topic.
Yes, but I actually work very hard on this topic called big data and AI ethics. Yeah. So, but this topic would be a very individual topic. You can talk about this in 2 and 3 hours about this topic. I just want to bring in, if you want to know more, I want to bring in just a few things that are as a problem. When you have a ranking system for news, when you have a collaborative filtering for a person, right? You see what I mean? Herbert might be a criminal half year later. So you do not give me the any chance to do something, because you guess maybe I'm a criminal. Collaborative filtering. Ranking, I have this score so that I'm better than you, right? But because I also know how to become a better ranking in this score, so that's why every time we compare, I'm better than you. So ranking is a bias. And then searching engine, of course. Searching engine is one kind of ranking. Okay, another one is recommendation. Right? Why I recommend you to Jack Ma, and I didn't recommend you to Jack Ma because you pay me more money, right? Or not because you pay me more money, because my engine has an algorithm to treat you better than him. And that's why I recommend you to Jack, and I didn't recommend you to Jack because he didn't know that. It's actually happening, If you are missing to pay your mobile phone bill, that number actually going into many of this engine. And you didn't know that just because you didn't pay for the mobile bill or 3 days late, right? You have a 5 point lower than me. You didn't know that. It's not fair, because the algorithm is not open. It's not an open algorithm. It's a black box. So then you didn't know that. The action that you have done actually giving you a bad score. So that is all about technology ethics. I mean, in China, you see that there's a harder and harder to get a taxi on the road. Then we can think about how to make it work. But 5 years later, I think you can see more and more problem out of that, including, I just mentioned about the information cascade, including that. That is actually something hidden very deep at the moment. But we all being influenced already. But be a smart guy or girl, I think you should think about this yourself. Yeah. I think take him first because
yeah. We need to fight. Yeah, just
wonder if Alibaba sharing the data across the team, like for example, like all those different products line, because you need one data from one people, right? And they like in many like services. Do you sharing data across, and how big of the team?
We have a big fight. Every company have a big fight when they talk about this. I mean, to be honest, I can give you a very beautiful answer. Say, yeah, we do. No, actually, we fight many times, right? Because everyone will treat their data as an important resources. And why the heck I have to share my resources to you without getting money back, right? But Jack Ma is quite very careful on this, because what he's done is that they say sharing data between one department to the other should be free, and also that sharing data from one department to another should be no condition, unless if you're providing a list to me to say this will hurt the experience of the customer. Otherwise, you have the obligation to share the data, right? Of course, this is a culture. The culture-wise, Alibaba has a culture of saying that we are brother. So don't hurt your brother, right? So we will need to work together. This is one thing good about Ali's culture. Ali's culture is more, I should put it this way. If you and me are on Alibaba team, right, and someone is hitting you, I will hit this guy first, and after that, I will ask you what happened. Maybe I say you're wrong, but I don't want someone to hurt my brother. But then after that, I may blaming you, so you're doing something bad, But that is the culture of our Ali culture. That we are together. So it's much easier for me to convince someone on next to me to say, let's share the data. Will be better. So it's much easier. But then it's not that easy, right? I remember that the president of Ali Cloud and also me has found out a way to doing this, is that providing a bill to each of the business president. What bill is meant that you have used the Ali Cloud power, and then I'm going to charge you for using the computer power. For me, I'm providing a bill to the president to say, you have used the data of that another president, and that data was something, right? But also that someone is also using your data for their business. So there is a bill to the CEO to say, there is a big consumer in data. Also, there is a big provider as well, and I'm providing two lists. So if you are on the bottom of the list for the both, right, the CEO will say, you're not doing right. So I remember that in one instant, I can't remember which year, Jack has, in a meeting, has asked the president to say, okay, you guys meet the KPI of this year, but you didn't meet the data KPI for this year because you didn't really share well with the data. Wow. So it really depends on the CEO who take charge on make use of the data is easy to use within the organization. So top management is very important. Also the culture is also important. Also the technology also important because technology makes it easier to move around. So 3 different kind of layer. Culture can be influenced by the top guy, right? Technology can be helping the culture as well because it's easy to use, and also can give the confidence to the top leader to say, okay, I can press more. I can press more. So it's a very good question. It's not that easy.
How big is the team, like for like the data team?
In Ali, we have 3 big teams in data. I only have 1/3 of that. So my team, before I left Ali, my team has 700 people.
Just only data.
Just only data.
Wow.
Okay.
That's very small, actually.
Then that's why, right? when I working on the project on standardization, because standardization makes people easier to across the globe. But then, at the same time, standardization actually not helping creativity. When you don't try to do a standardization, usually you are killing the creativity as well. Of how to make this decision of when I'm going to do a standardization and when I'm going to do more on the creativity. Essentially not a science, it's an art, right? But for Jack or for the management, not just Jack, right? Usually we will discuss about this fully in 2 or 3 weeks time in a remote area where we do not discuss about other people, and we will argue about this very strongly on each of the management in order to get the answer for next year and what we will do with it. So maybe that's the answer, right? Because we need, even with the technology today, the technology will not tell you what your company should do in the future, right? It's still relying on the human to design what to do in order to helping the society, in order to be a big company. So it's very hard to answer this question. But even for my team, for the 700 people in my team, I also separate into some of my scientists has to sit on the department, not with me, and come back one day a week in order to talk with me what is happening on the other side of the pyramid, right? So it's much easier. I have a word, say, in China, they like to have a free word to mention about big data. So 会, 管, 用. In English, will be 会, it means that connecting all these things together, right? Manage it, and then we're going to make use of it. But I have one more word in between, it's called 通, 通, which means that flow, let it flow smoothly. That the data flows smoothly in between before you're going to manage it. Don't manage too early. Let it flow for a while first. And then when you're looking into this, and then you manage it. Because the data is really funny, right? The more raw data, the data has much more and rich content than the data that you have aggregated or the data you have managed. Once you manage it, you actually damage it, right? So I need to look into the raw data and let it fry for a while. After a while, I will say, okay, I understand this. Let me do some kind of standardization in order to reduce the cost of crunching the data. Maybe I not really answer your question, but communication, if in management point of view, communication is very important. So we need to have the data guy work with the business guy and then work with the operation guys. But culture makes it easier to talk. Without good culture, it's very hard to talk in the top management. We will be like just facts, but no talk, right? And then you will not fix the problem again next time. I think I want to take the last question.
Okay. My question may be a bit similar to previous question, but let me just ask this: how do you build a data system that is robust against the next one event? So, for example, you use the example of the airplane, right? Every day you fly, everything is good. But then suddenly, every day good, you have more data. But then one day, the engine stops, and then you have no data. And very similar to the mobile and PC, right? Every time that previously you have a lot of data on PC, then suddenly one day the mobile. So how do you build a system that is robust against